Today I'll be talking with double bassist Olguin, who attended PRIZM summer camp back in its earliest years. Since then, he's received his master's and bachelor's from the University of North Texas, and he now plays for the Trondheim Symphony in Norway. He most recently placed second in the Sphinx competition, where I got to hear him play Andres Martin's Concerto for Bass. He played it with the musicality of a storyteller and the energy of a rock star. Please sit back and listen to his musical journey and his thoughts about ego and inspiration.
I was wondering, how did your interest in music start? And like, how did that journey look at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I started quite young. I played guitar whenever I was 8 years old, and went to this sort of a program. I don't know if it's exactly what PRIZM does, but it was sort of this. It was this thing called Kids College in Brownsville, Texas, and basically they just got like a bunch of different subjects and curriculums that you can try out. Like I even tried like making fish nuts. Like it was super random stuff, like fishing pole knots, and then another class I took was like outdoor survival skills, and then one of them was guitar. And so I really loved guitar and I really wanted to play guitar, because I listened to a lot of like Eddie Van Halen and these sorts of things. I really wanted to do this with my life, and at 8, and I was like dedicated to being better than Eddie Van Halen, and like that was my goal. So I started at 8, and then from took a few lessons here and there, and then after that it was completely self-taught, just jamming out like crazy in the room, learning tablatures and things like this. And then it turned to double bass whenever I moved up to Dallas for my middle school years, and they were at the school. They said that they have music programs that I could attend. And there's one for band and there's one for orchestra. And I just said I wanted to do music in general. And then the first thing they assigned me as was clarinet. But I just thought I had so many weird stereotypes in my head about clarinet, and I don't know why. But I just told the counselor, like at that moment, I was like, no, I want to do something else. I don't want to do clarinet. So then they were like, well, we can do an orchestra. And I was like, well, what's that? And they were just like, yeah, you'll see. But the orchestra director is going to come in. And so the orchestra director came in and they sized me for an instrument with my hands, like just checking your hand size. And they're like, okay, well, I think your hands are big enough to try double bass. And I was like, cool, what's that? And then I saw the thing, and of course I was like, wow, that's not a guitar. And it just the rest of it was just like really a happy accident. It really felt like I was trying to do things like guitar stuff on double bass and practiced a lot, and I felt like it really felt pursue like it pushed me a bit with the instrument because it was in a way very easy for me to play whenever I was young. I learned it very quickly, and I didn't really see at all what was going on. But yeah, they're like, no, you're good, man. Just keep going. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this. But yeah, and it was just like it was literally like there was like three people in my life that really pushed me to do it. It was like this middle school director from the Colony, Texas, named Bart Gent, another lady named Fawn Sorgi, and my first like official teacher, Good in Russian. Like these three people were just like, no, you should really keep doing this. Like I think you're doing a really good job and you're learning a lot. And I was like, then like at some point I was like, no, I think I'm gonna stop. And then like they literally went and called my parents and told them like why I shouldn't stop playing bass. And so it was like a lot of this, a lot of the times, just constantly getting a lot of support. And yeah, at some point you just sort of fall in love with it, I think. But yeah, that was a little bit of a story, I guess, about how it all started.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing. Do you still play other styles on your bass because you you liked another style before playing.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I feel so connect. This is why I feel very connected to the Andres Martin concerto because it does remind me of my childhood. And Andres Martin, he's a Mexican composer. He's also a dear friend of mine. He wrote this piece in 2012, this concerto that you heard. This is the last movement of the whole concerto, and he's also like a big metalhead. And like, I'm not so much into metal anymore, but whenever I was younger, I was, and played a lot of rock and roll and different kinds of things like Metallica, these sorts of things. And Andres does this. He's constantly playing guitar and like really jams out. So in this piece, you hear it's basically just playing guitar on bass. So it really resonated with all the way I like learned double bass as a kid and experimented and stuff. So this is like in a way a different style, less traditional way, but it's still a fantastic piece of music. I'm very lucky to have it in our repertoire. Yeah, thanks. Exactly. It's just like, like when you're like sweeping on the guitar doing arpeggios, it's just this with the bow. It's really very similar. A lot of really cool effects and it was really nice. Yeah.
I was wondering what inspires you as a person and what inspires your playing.
Yeah, this is of course a very difficult question because it is changing all the time. Uh, there has been a period where I suffered from like you can call it a burnout, if you will. Like I didn't really understand why I did this. I think whenever you externalize your goals for things that don't involve human interest, like for example, doing it for others' benefits, like in a way like performing music for the experience that you're giving to others or for yourself, if you do it for something external, then it's not a lasting ambition. So there was a lot of time where I was trying to figure out what this all meant, everything. And I spent about the last 2 to 3 years trying to figure this out. And it was kind of like, going into the cave period where I didn't really come out so much. I was really isolated. I almost like quit bass again. It was very close. I mean, I was mentioning it to my colleagues at Sphinx last year as well, that it was a really hard time for me to understand what I'm doing with this instrument and what it means to me. But I think whenever I learned to just find a better way to sit with the instrument and to play a little bit more comfortably, this was also another issue I was having. When this sort of started to clear itself out after working with some people and slowly getting into a little bit more comfortable position, um, and then, of course, these questions of what the goals are come to your mind. And I I think I was reading a lot about different things and what all of like just life meaning means and these sorts of things. But I think what really hit me and what sort of solidified, I had some ideas of what it could all mean. But whenever I went to Sphinx again, and I recently did some other concerts here in Norway, the comments that you get from people, like it's never about like, yeah, it looks like your left hand was like this or your right hand was like that. And of course, people maybe think that, but they don't really tell you. But the big thing for me was just that whenever people go in and listen for just those 5 minutes that you're playing something extraordinary or even shorter sometimes like a 2 minute cadenza, or something, and then they come to you and they give you a comment that they're alive. They feel like they came to this thing and they feel alive. And even if you made mistakes or something, it's like completely besides the point because this idea of like having purpose in life is it's so special and everybody finds it in their own way. And if you can make people sort of like have this, oh my gosh, I'm alive right now. Like this was such a cool experience for me. And they go on their day and hopefully they will want to inspire others or they will pursue listening to music because it brought something to them and meant something to them. It's a lasting experience. And I think this to me has become a lot more of my purpose than anything else with music. That in the future, if I keep doing performances and solo performances, perhaps and chamber music performances, that people really get the sensation that they are together in this quest for understanding why we're on this spinning ball. And it's a very special experience with music, and I think this is my purpose. Yeah.
I really like that you said that because I think it's relatable with a lot of musicians.
Mhm.
And coming from a musician that's really great, it's it's validating to hear because I think there's a lot of musicians who maybe might not play as well, but they still struggle. They struggle like, why am I doing this? And sometimes you have to take those gigs that aren't satisfying, and
Yeah.
you went through a degree, you're like, why am I playing this? So
Yeah. But it's all a part of the process, you know? It's like I think as a musician, I will say that this idea of patience is so undervalued because I mean, you're gonna take as long as you're going to take to learn it. Like that's it. And the top of the world in their field, and not everybody's going to get a job, and that's just the bottom line. Like I know that's not what we're taught because every school wants to say that they're all of their students are going to get a job. This might not happen, and some people might not find their way with music. But I always wonder why that is. Like, what is holding people back, or is it a one size fits all recipe? I don't, of course, it's not because everybody has their own experiences with music and with life and etc. But I really do think that this idea of like of being patient with yourself in the practice room and being patient with yourself with meaning, it's so important. The moment that you lose the patience with your learning process, and if you don't allow yourself to experiment, if you don't allow yourself um, to be happy, like you can't wait for things to be in order for you to be happy. You know, you're just holding yourself back. And I think it means with your playing, it means with so many other things as well. But yeah, it's not easy because then you have to give up the stress. And I do think that stress is not necessary. It's not brought on by the instrument. If you sit down at the piano, you sit down at the clarinet or whatever, that thing is not stressing you out. You're stressing yourself out. And why? You know? So these are the questions you have to be patient with and ask yourself about because it's only going to push you to the next level. And this is an everyday process. I mean, it's as soon as something goes wrong, the first thing you want to do is throw it out the door because you want to be at the place already, you know? You want this one teacher, this one book, or this one experience to give you the position in life that you seek. But you have to be patient because it's not a destination, it's a journey there.
right. Yeah, it, a lot of things from your music life, anyone's music life, translate to your life, your whole
Yeah.
life, and
Yes.
challenges your mental being.
I don't get how it's possible to separate them. Like I don't get how you can go into the practice room and have a different person on the stage and in this life, and then you go into your life and be somebody completely different. I don't get it. I mean, and I was in a position like this for a long time because it was like, oh, I'm a professional and I'm going to be a professional when I play and I have to practice like a professional. My teacher's like this, so I do like this. And then you come out of your life and you come out into the real world and all of a sudden you're somebody else and you're not asking yourself why. Like, why are you not being yourself? I mean, what does it mean to play music for you and why can't you just do that? And what's holding you back? And is it the social world? I mean, if because nobody's telling you to do it, but you feel the pressure to do it. So these are questions you ask yourself, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's hard to be aware those are questions you have to ask
Yeah.
because it might be frightening to some people. Maybe there's something deeper, and it's scary to ask yourself.
Well, I mean, think about it because if you have this personality that has brought you so far, what happens when you let it go? It's letting go of something that it's I mean, what does it mean to let it go, first of all? That's a scary thought. And then whenever you realize what it means to let it go, whenever you have to do something, be yourself, this could be kind of scary because you're feeling naked and you feel like, well, maybe I'm not going to play as good. Maybe I'm not going to do this, but then you're not being genuine. And whenever perhaps you're exposed to this in public, right, in a public setting, because as musicians, we have to perform for other people. This could be very difficult because then you have to take off this wall and you have to sort of let it all out, and that's difficult. And that could be, it's in a way it could be ego because you have these different kinds of ego, right? It's like the person that's like standing there at the top of the mountain saying, I got there, look at me. And then there's the other person who doesn't do that, which is the same ego and just as dangerous as the other person that doesn't say much, but is in their head and they think about their self-worth and how they should be doing these things and how they should be, oh, you're not playing good enough, you know better. That's just ego just constantly feeding itself and like not wanting to let go of this wall and not wanting to let go of these dreams because it's brought you this far, but not knowing how much further you can go if you let go and if you really are patient, if you really try these certain things and you let go of certain um, physical and mental restraints in your playing. It's like I said, this is just a journey. I think this is all a process. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you said that because I had a conversation with my friend too about that the other side of ego, it's not only the type of ego that we think when someone thinks they're the best, but there's the other side
Yeah.
too, which is I
Yeah.
like that you said that.
Believing in your self-worth so much. Yeah.
Yeah. So this just reminded this is kind of a silly question, maybe not for other people, but do you get nervous when you play, and has it changed because of your perspective of ego?
Mhm. Yeah, this is a really interesting question. I mean, I think for a long time I wasn't like there was a period where going into university and slightly before I was kind of nervous playing. I would have like just typical nervous symptoms. Like I would get sweaty, my face would turn red, my hands would get sweaty. I would like start rushing. I would kind of lose track of what I'm doing. I would autopilot and I would just see my body moving, and it was sort of like, what the heck am I doing here? That's normal, right? But then at some point, I developed the wall that I talked about, this personality, this like external thing. And then it carried into other parts of your life where you're sort of like living behind this wall of who you think you are. And then I became a lot less nervous because I felt like this was sort of like I had this security of something. So even if I wasn't playing well, objectively, there was a lot of things subjectively I was like hanging on to because it was a part of this personality, right? So then it was difficult for me to grow because in a way, it was like ego, right? Because you're like believing in this personality that you're trying to build for yourself. You're trying to quote unquote find yourself. And so you but kind of became less nervous because you're kind of like hiding behind this wall. And then I started getting nervous again because then I realized that the wall needed to fall down and I needed to rethink what I'm doing and ask myself a lot of questions about who I am and what I want, and is my playing actually good, and what does it even mean to be good, and why does it matter if it's good or not, and these sorts of questions. And whenever you play, then you sort of like lost your feeling of because you've just been autopiloting this wall, and then you kind of like, wait, what do I want to do? And then you're asking these questions on stage, and then you get nervous because you feel like you're kind of like walking on ice for the first time. But once you sort of, like I said, allow yourself to keep walking on the ice, you keep yourself like in this position where you're constantly flexible and moving with the ground, and the ground is moving with you, sort of thing. Then you get used to it in a way because you're walking like yourself. You're walking through your body and through your emotions, through your experiences. Uh, and I think Sphinx was interesting because this was one of the biggest performances I had done in quite a long time. It was the last time I did Sphinx was 3, 4 years ago, whenever I got into the finals again. And I was a little bit nervous and like I wasn't sure how well I was going to play. I had no idea. It was like a happy accident, it felt like. And then now it felt like I was in control because I had been pushing myself to get into this period of like not necessarily control, but having this like sense of security, how to get my practicing better, how to like develop techniques so that when I go on stage, I'm ready to go. And it's not just some happy accident, like, oh, everything happened on tune. But how can I get my practice like every single time it's in tune? What can I be doing in these situations? How can I incorporate body language to bring out the best parts of the music? Not for my personality because I want to have 1 million followers on TikTok or whatever, but it's because I want the music to come out the best way it can. That's what I want. And once I was feeling a lot more secure with that, when I knew that I could do that, then the nervous thing kind of slowly went away. And I allowed myself not to be nervous. And this is the part that's hard, is that you have to allow yourself to be confident. And that is scary because you're like, is it enough? And you will never know. I'm sorry. But it doesn't matter because as long as two or three people or something come out of that concert feeling like they were touched and that they felt alive. And I mean, what else do you want? I mean, you're nobody in percent satisfaction rate from their audience. It's just not possible. Everybody has too many different ideas and experiences. And if we're so nervous about that, then we shouldn't play music because we're worried about something we can't control. And but the whole point I'm trying to make is this last time at Sphinx was really nice because even in the dress rehearsals, I wasn't nervous. I felt like I was able to play and listen to what's going on behind me and seeing if I can make a nice performance for the audience and thinking about the colors the orchestra was making while I was playing, adding, taking away things and experimenting and things you have to allow yourself to do outside of nervousness. And on the stage, you let it happen. You just allow it to happen and you don't worry about if the mistake is going to come. I mean, yeah, it's there a little bit, but this is habits. These are just all those years of you telling yourself that a mistake might happen. And slowly, little by little, that layer starts getting peeled back and the nervousness becomes a part of excitement. And this is a different transition, I think. And yeah, I'm glad that it's getting closer to something like this where nervousness become excitement and energy, positive energy. And yeah, so that's sort of a little bit about how I'm going with nervousness, I suppose.
Thank you for that reminder for myself.
Yeah.
I play more chamber music because I can feel like I can listen and I'm in more of control of adapting and actually
Yeah.
having fun. But when I'm playing solo music, oh,
But this is what I love. Like this is what actually got me was Leif the Norwegian pianist Leif Seges not Segestam but Leif Adnes Leif Adnes
life.
Leif
Okay,
Ove Adnes Leif Ove Adnes
uh-huh.
Norwegian pianist. He's like
Uh-huh.
considered one of the best Norwegian pianists of all time. He's absolutely amazing. He's already soloed with like Berlin. He soloed with like he's on the top of the world as it relates to solo piano. One of the greats right now. Fantastic
Oh yeah,
musician.
I know who you're
Incredible.
talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just had to
Life
like
of
think.
it.
I had to think about the spelling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Fantastic, right?
yeah,
Amazing guy.
yeah.
It's such a beautiful touch. He did Rachmaninoff too with us fairly recently. And that's one of his signature pieces. He's done it quite a lot. And he did it actually, this piece was with Trondheim Symphonies many years ago. And then he came back and now he's of course toured it a lot of times since, but you can see the mastery that he has. And I think what really got me to understand this idea of control perhaps and understanding like what it means to know the music is this is a difficult concerto for piano. It's all over the place. It's like happening. You can't just play everything fortissimo. It's like you have to have different colors and make it sound interesting. And the general not pedagogical way of looking at it, but just most people will, I suppose, go through the music and just worry about getting all the notes right. Right? Like it's just like there's so much happening, you're focusing on yourself, but Life had so much control of the music. He was able to play everything and think about what the orchestra was doing while he was going absolutely crazy on the piano. And he would stop playing and he would say, "Yeah, maybe we can have this different color from the brass or different articulation," and go back and play and still listen to the orchestra while he's playing and hit it every time. That is something so special, and I think that's like a completely different level of understanding of music and it's outside of yourself, like yeah, he made some mistakes here and there, but there, it's like come on, like that is so human as well because you're worried about the experience for the audience, you're worried about the experience of the entire musical thing. It's not just about you. And I think that was just wow, that was really inspiring and that really hit me. And I try to do that at Sphinx. And of course, you're not used to it a bit, because you don't play in front of the orchestra, but I play a lot with recordings while I play in the practice room. I'll put on a recording of like another orchestra playing the concerto, and I'll think about how it lies, and I'll listen to point out one specific instrument while I'm playing and see if I can hit everything and listen to the color that they're making. These sorts of like outside of yourself sort of thinking. And yeah, and at Sphinx, I tried it in the rehearsals, and it was, of course, different, and it was really nice, and I was able to contribute to the overall sound of the orchestra and to the overall interpretation of the piece because I allowed myself to be outside of myself in a way, and it was a cool experience. So, yeah.
I love that. You allowed yourself to be outside
Yeah.
of yourself. But
Yeah,
it's hard.
that
Even
is.
even when people are like talking to you, you can tell they're like inside themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you spend most of your time? I mean, whenever you're not speaking with somebody, where are you? You're in your
Yeah.
head thinking
Yeah.
about something, or you're on your phone and you like digest something, you take things in. As soon as somebody stops, or as soon as somebody starts talking to you, you immediately process what they're saying
Mm.
through your own mental
Mhm.
thought. So you're spending
Mhm.
most of your time with yourself. So why not leave it a bit?
I just want to ask one last question.
Sure.
What, I know this is a broad question. What advice would you give to young musicians who are studying music?
Yeah. Yeah, this is hard. I mean, it is a very general question. It is difficult. Mm, I mean, yeah. I think finding out how to set goals, what healthy goals what attainable goals uh, is super important, and it is like the first step to understanding what the higher form of that idea of goals is, which is meaning. And I think this is important. I think you with your teacher and with the music professionals, because it's really difficult to do it on your own, and to know you really need outside. I really do think this is a step that you should get in school from your teacher, is learning how to make achievable goals, timely goals, um, goals that are going to get you to where you need to go, and allowing for yourself to achieve those goals, having the discipline to hold on to those goals. Um, this is, I think, a really good step to do, because as soon as you get there, then you understand how to get to meaning, because now it is like metaphysical goals. These are goals that you get through discipline, through patience, through relaxation, or through letting go of stress, letting go of certain things. These are, of course, goals as well. Learning new habits, getting rid of old habits. These are all a part of meaning. And if you can do this little by little with music and simple things, and if you then apply it to things that are really important for your long-term happiness, then I think you're uh, on your way to something very great, perhaps.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was so
Yes.
nice to get to know you past just your playing, you know. Thank you for
Yeah.
opening up and sharing your thoughts.
Yeah.
Um,
No, thank you for
yeah.
having me. This is really exciting. Hopefully I get to go back to PRIZM. I mean, this is now my second interview with PRIZM since
Oh,
I've left, and I have not gone back. And it's just because, I live in Europe, so it's a little bit
yeah.
difficult with timing, but it would be
Yeah.
so cool one day to go back and to because it was I thought it was really fun.